What is up, everyone? Thank you all for tuning in to another Stevens Sports Sunday. Happy Sunday, everyone. Hopefully you all are having an amazing day. It was a big week of sports. Got a lot to get to in this episode to get you all up to speed in what's happening in the world of sports. I have a very special surprise. I had a wonderful interview with Bill Riley. He is the radio play-by-play voice of Utah athletics. For those of you on YouTube, there is his Twitter snippet. For those of you watching on or listening, on Spotify, sorry about that you're not going to be able to see that, but look him up on YouTube. He's an amazing dude. He was very, very generous with his time. He had just gotten off of his show with ESPN 700, where he talks for 3 hours about sports. So I caught him after that, and he was still willing to kind of give his takes and things on the questions that I have for him about Utah football. So that is my most important takeaway, which we'll get to here in a minute. But first, let me delve into what I've got for all of y'all after you listen to that amazing interview. I have some talk about the NFL football offseason. There are some big signings this week, and I left that off of the docket last week. So I want to get to some other moves that have happened in the last few months. NCAA football offseason news, some news out of the SEC came in, and I want to give my thoughts on that. I'll have PGA Tour updates, and the NBA-All-Star teams were just picked. So I'll share those rosters and some thoughts on what all transpired there. And then, of course, I'll have my weekly report about Utah athletics. So I'll go down at the end of the episode and talk what happened this week, what's moving forward. Just to preface, this is recorded Friday, but happy Sunday to y'all, because this is going to come out Sunday. So if there's anything catastrophic that happens between now and Sunday, my apologies. Crazy weekend for me personally. So this is when I was able to get this out. So anyway, Bill and I basically started talking about the first question I asked him was in regards to the Utah football schedule. So you'll see that in the interview here in a minute, but some thoughts that I wanted to highlight before we sit down in that interview is they do not have a game with Washington this year. Washington is a very physical team. Out of the Pac-12 North. They almost won the Pac-12 North again, but had some COVID issues last season and ended up not being able to play Oregon. And so Oregon was able to then default and go to the Pac-12 championship game, and were able to then go on and win it and play in a New Year's Six bowl. But with that being said, they do not have to play Washington. So that's a big you're not ever really scared to play anyone, but with that being said, that's a physical test that you don't have to go through in the regular season this year. They have a bye week before traveling to the Coliseum to take on USC, so they'll be able to be rested, refreshed, have 2 weeks to prepare for that one, which is always one of the biggest games in Utah's schedule, regardless of where it falls. And they have home games against Washington State. Arizona State comes to mind. They're a big emerging program in the Pac-12 South, and Oregon. They also finished the season at home against rival Colorado. So some big things. And so hopefully that transitions you and kind of sets you up for what Bill and I talk about. And with that being said, I won't hold it off any further. Here is the interview with Bill Riley. Enjoy. I am happily joined now by Bill Riley, the radio voice of the University of Utah. He does play-by-play for football as well as basketball and Real Salt Lake. He is the host of his own show at ESPN 700, which airs weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So once again, he's being very gracious with his time, coming off of that show to give us some thoughts and some feedback about Utah football as we head into the offseason with spring ball starting next week. I'm sorry, 2 weeks, I believe. So my first question for you, Bill, is basically surrounded by the schedule. The schedule was released this week on Tuesday. A couple things that I think are big takeaways from it is there's no Pac-12 North matchup with Washington, which has been a very physical and tough matchup throughout the years. They play Arizona State at home, which is interesting with some transfer news, which we got earlier this month, which we'll talk about here in a bit. UCLA's at home, Oregon's at home. home, which is always a tough game, and Washington State and Colorado at home as well. So some of your key takeaways, if you don't mind, about this schedule release that came out on Tuesday.
Well, first, quick thought on the non-conference. I don't think you'll see again anytime in the near future Utah playing 2 Group of 5 caliber road games. It was set up by the prior administration. Mark Harlan's shown a propensity to beef the schedule up beginning next year when Baylor and Florida join the schedule. But they'll play at San Diego State, which is technically in Los Angeles at, what's it called? Something Divinity Health Center, whatever. It's the old StubHub Center where the LA Galaxy play and the Chargers played the last couple of years. They play BYU on the road and then Weber State at home. You knew that coming in, no big deal, manageable there. Pac-12 schedule-wise, they open up with Washington State at home, and then they close the season with Oregon and Colorado at home. They have 5 home conference games, 4 road conference games. But the game everybody looks at, I don't care who you are, you always look for USC because they are the big dog in the conference. Utah has them, but they've got a bye week before. They play Washington State. They get a bye week, then they play USC, and then they come back home for ASU. That's kind of a big 2-week, probably the biggest 2-week back-to-back game stretch for Utah on there. Their only road back-to-back games, Stanford and Arizona. Arizona's going to be terrible this year. I'm 90% sure. And I don't know about Stanford. I mean, Stanford, I don't know. They lost Davis Mills, so that's a big deal. But, you know, David Shaw's a good coach, and we'll see what happens with Stanford. But all in all, I think it's a very good schedule. When Kyle Whittingham and Mark Harlan got it, I'm sure they looked at it and said, yeah, this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. So I think all in all, it's pretty manageable for Utah.
Yeah, definitely. I think you made a good point there with the USC game in the bye week before. It's always a very physical game, especially going on the road to the Coliseum. We've seen a couple battles there throughout the years, especially here in my time in school. It's always been a tremendous game. The Washington State matchup always intrigues me as well. It's such a tough offense to kind of scheme for, and has always seemed to be kind of an interesting matchup with Utah's defense that really specifies on stopping the run first, and the air raid is kind of one of the things that's posed a lot of problems. We saw Utah go down big at halftime and were able to rally back last year in that final game of the season. So I agree with you. I think it's a very manageable schedule. I thought there were some interesting points, and I think we kind of highlighted them well. So my second little thing that I want to kind of get to is the transfer portal. I think this in at least my recent years, and I think this is just a trend that's going around in all of college football, is this is the most I've seen Utah invested in the transfer portal since I've been in school here. There's been a couple big moves that I highlighted in my last episode that came out last week. We got a transfer from Alabama linebacker. I'm completely blanking on his name as of right now, but that was a big get. We've gotten a couple big running backs from LSU and Oklahoma. And the one I really want to get your read on is the quarterback situation, because as of right now, we have Charlie Brewer, who transferred in from Baylor. He's a grad transfer, and then Jaquinden Jackson from Texas, as well as joining Cam Rising, who's going to be coming off of that torn labrum, and true freshman recruit Peter Costelli. So just kind of what do you think that Ute fans should expect next season from the quarterback situation? I know you don't have like a big crystal ball, but
yeah, it's hard to say right now because of Cam's injury, and a lot of that's predicated, but we're not going to know anything about that till summertime. He's not going to be part of spring football, which starts in about a week and a half. So in some ways, that's probably, I don't want to say good for Andy Ludwig, but Andy knows what Cam is. He's seen him as a reserve quarterback, and then last year he won the job in fall camp over Jake Bentley. So I think Andy knows what he's got if Cam Rising's healthy. This gives him an opportunity to really vet Charlie Brewer, who, as you mentioned, was a 4-year starter at Baylor, threw for over 10,000 yards, was a terrific player, led them to the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago. And then you mentioned Jaquinden Jackson and Peter Costelli. Those guys are true freshmen. They've not played a lick of college football yet, but they'll get some reps in springtime. Both those guys are highly touted 4-star quarterbacks for different reasons. Jaquinden Jackson is a big, physical kid, huge arm, not real accurate yet. And then you've got Costelli, who's a track athlete who can really throw it too. But my guess is, and this is just a guess, but I believe Brewer didn't come to Utah to be a backup. So he's there and rising. I think ultimately Ludwig's going to come out of springtime having a good feel for who those 3 quarterbacks are. And then you enter fall camp, and it's probably going to be Brewer and Rising battling. Now, maybe a guy like Jaquinden Jackson or a guy like Peter Costelli really wildly impresses. which would be great for Utah. But true freshmen, hard to break in against guys that have experience. Good news is the quarterback room's never been deeper with talent. I've been around the program for almost 20 years. I've been the voice of the years for going on 13 years now. So there's lots of talent there. But my guess is experience probably wins out, and Cam's got it in the program, and Brewer's got it on the field. So I think by the time we hit August, it will probably be a battle between Brewer and Cam Rising.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you just said. The excess of talent is something that you're never going to be upset with. That's definitely a positive for Utah football. The thing that intrigues me the most is Charlie Brewer, because I've seen him play at Baylor against those Big 12 defenses, and he's looked so dominant. That was a Baylor team that if they don't lose to Oklahoma in that last game of the season, they were undefeated with a chance to go really push for a college football playoff berth. So interesting news there. I'm really excited to kind of see what happens with Charlie Brewer and Cam Rising. I would say those are probably the two headliners. Front runners is a better word to kind of get the starting job. But yeah, it's a stacked room, and that's really exciting for Utah fans, because I want to kind of get down to this next point, is the Brian Thompson transfer to Arizona State, and I think that kind of plays into a little bit the quarterback situation of late, and some of the I don't want to say ineptitude of being able to get to some of these players, but just kind of the way that Utah kind of operates with their wide receivers. So I kind of want to get your beat on all of that, and kind of see your thoughts about the Brian Thompson transfer and the wide receiver scenario at Utah.
Well, Brian Thompson had been here for almost 4 years, and he didn't feel like he was utilized to the level that he could have been. Now, some of that had to do with injuries last year. I firmly believe this. I said this repeatedly last year. If Cam Rising was healthy, I think you would have seen them throw the football a lot more than they did. Jake Bentley was handicapped by the fact that he didn't have a spring or a summer. I'm not sure stylistically he was a great fit, but he didn't win the job. And Cam did. If he doesn't go down in the first quarter, I think they're going to throw the football more, because remember, going into fall, we didn't know who Ty Jordan was. He was a freshman out of Texas. They didn't have Zach Moss. I believe we would have probably seen a lot more balls in the air. If you look at the Kyle Whittingham era, the three best offensive years of the Kyle Whittingham era were year 1, year 4, and then 2 years ago. What's the common denominator? Andy Ludwig was the offensive coordinator in all 3 of those years. And in all 3 of those years, Brian Johnson, and Tyler Huntley they were all 3,000-yard passing seasons. I believe that Andy Ludwig, in this day and age, is a very good and very adaptable offensive coordinator. They're never going to be the run and shoot. They're never going to be the air raid. Running the football will always be part of it. But I think Andy knows, and he's smart enough to know, that in this day and age, you've got to be able to put the ball in the air. And I think they've had weapons to do it. Losing Brian Thompson hurts. Let's not kid ourselves. He was probably the best all-around wide receiver they had, especially for a pro prospect. And then on top of that, losing Samson Nakua, another kid that had been in the program for 4 years. If you keep that room healthy, and that's a big if in football, Covey, Dixon, and Enos, those are 3 good wide receivers. And then you mix in Brant Keithy, who's probably an NFL tight end, you've got targets. The problem you run into is, right now at least, and again, we're sitting here in March, but outside of those 3 guys, nobody in the wide receiver room has any real experience catching the football and making plays in football games. Devon Vele, maybe he turns out to be a good guy. Hadn't done it. Money Parks, they love that kid out of high school, doesn't have a catch in his career. Connor O'Toole, hurt last year, has no experience. So, right now, and the transfer portal could still be open. Kyle Whittingham said that maybe they'll go looking for another wide receiver. But as of today, they've got 3 good receivers and a great tight end and a couple of good backup tight ends. But if you suffer any injuries, you've gotten real thin without a lot of experience in the program.
Right, especially with Britton Covey, who's had his fair share of injuries, and he just takes a beating, and he's that smaller slot receiver that goes inside and has to battle with the big linebackers and things. You mentioned Jalen Dixon, the return of him coming back through the transfer portal, I think is one of the biggest moves this offseason. I loved him when he was here originally. I think his speed and his deep threat is something that really opened up Utah's offense. I loved that move of him coming back. I thought that was a huge get. And Solomon Enos, I think, is a little bit more unpolished, but I think he has some of that same skill set that Brian Thompson did have. And I agree with you when you say Brian Thompson was one of the best receivers that we've seen in a while here at Utah, and his skill sets and his kind of pro style ability to go be that number one receiver.
Well, there's no excuses anymore. I mean, Solomon doesn't have anybody in front of him. I mean, if he's going to make his mark as a junior, now is his time. He's always had to kind of battle those guys, the Brian Thompsons, the Samson Nakuas. Well, he's a big physical wide receiver. He doesn't have speed probably quite like Nakua and Thompson did, but he's got good size. He's got to be more consistent catching the football. Some of that was on quarterback play last year, not being super accurate, but now is his time. You know, he's played 33 career games. He's got 33 catches. Or is it 33 career games, 38 catches. You know, Jalen Dixon's played 28 career games. He's got 56 catches. And Britton Covey's got like 132. But those are your guys right now. And even if you add somebody, those are the guys that know the offense, that will have played and know the quarterbacks, and those are the guys you've got to count on. If you add somebody else, that's great. But those are the three guys you really need to count on this year.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you. It's going to be a new look for the Utah offense. We touched on the running back scenarios. We got two new running backs, TJ Pledger from Oklahoma, and I'm blanking on the guy's name from LSU, but both 4-star recruits out of Chris Curry. Thank you. Out of 4-star recruits out of high school. We saw TJ Green. Blanking again. The rest of the running back room pretty much is going to be completely different than what we saw last year. Obviously, with the heartbreaking news with Ty Jordan that rocked Utah in this offseason. I'm really looking forward to the new kind of look that the Utah offense is going to have, just personally.
Well, I don't think they're going to have too much of a new look, though. Every offensive lineman's back. Your wide receivers are back. Your tight ends are all back. And let's be fair. You know, a year ago at this time, nobody knew what Ty Jordan was. We were talking about Jordan Wilmore and Devin Brumfield. Utah's never had problems finding guys to carry the football. Don't count out Mekhi Bernard. Mekhi Bernard only got a few touches last year. TJ Green's gone. Jordan Wilmore's gone. Devin Brumfield's gone. But Mekhi Bernard's got some – he was a 4-star kid coming out of Long Beach. So, you know, and then you've got Ricky Parks coming in from Florida. Utah will figure that out. Yeah. They always do. Their offensive line is going to be really good. There's somebody in that room is going to be good enough. And even if they're not, 3 guys, if you can't get 1,000 yards out of 3 guys, you've done something wrong. So the one position group I've really never worried about, you know, when Zach Moss left, oh my God, who's it going to be? When Devontae Booker left, oh my God, who's it going to be? They always find a running back, Kyle Whittingham going back in time. And whether it's 1 guy, 2 guys, or 3 guys, they'll get production out of that room.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited to see what happens this year with Utah football. I'm really looking forward to it as they kind of retool and re-gear for another Pac-12 championship run. So, Bill Riley, thank you so much for your time and your graciousness of coming on and sharing your opinions and thoughts and stuff. And any final thoughts before I let you go?
No, I'm just looking forward to spring football and seeing what happens, and really looking forward to seeing Rice Eccles, what it looks like when it's finished in the fall, and hopefully getting to call a spring football game this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. Well, once again, thank you very much, and look forward to hearing you out there. Once again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Bill for offering up his time, his thoughts, his takes on what's going to take place this season for Utah football, what some of the new faces are going to look like, everything that has transpired this offseason so far. It's going to be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new faces in the backfield. Quarterback is going to be a huge battle, so much depth. Also, there's a ton of depth at running back. So like Bill said, do not sleep on Bernard. He was a beast last year. He unlimited touches and he really set the standard for what he's going to be able to accomplish later on in his Utah career. So once again, thank you so much, Bill Riley. It was a pleasure talking to you. And it really meant a lot for you to come on and offer up your thoughts. So with that being said, I'll transition off of Utah athletics for right now, but that was my most important takeaway of the episode so far. please disregard the siren that's happening right now outside. I'm very sorry about that. Can't control everything that happens in these episodes. Anyway, so let's move on to the NFL. J.J. Watt has signed with the Arizona Cardinals. This is a 2-year deal, $31 million. He rejoins his former teammate with the Cardinals and DeAndre Hopkins, which is big news. They both played for the Texans for multiple years, and then the Texans ended up trading DeAndre Hopkins, which was questionable at the time, and now J.J. Watt has asked to be released from the Texans and then went on to sign with the Cardinals. This is an interesting move. He said that they just approached him from all the right angles in free agency. They gave him a pitch that he just couldn't refuse. It really bolsters this young Cardinals team that's really up and coming. And one of the things that I really loved about this is he texted Kyler Murray, their going into his third year quarterback for the Cardinals. And he said, I'm coming here because I believe in you. And that's just a really encouraging start to that kind of bond. And not that you necessarily need a bond between a defensive end and a quarterback, but kind of having that faith and that trust and knowing that Kyler Murray is going to be your future leader for a couple years at least is huge. And he's acknowledging that as he goes in. So I was really happy to see that. J.J. Watt has been a very good ambassador for the city of Houston. I'm expecting very good things. Nothing but good things as he goes to Arizona and really bolsters that young lineup. And it's going to be really, really cool to see what happens there. The Buffalo Bills were very interested in J.J. Watt. They had struggles last year stopping the run. So that one slipped through their fingers, but I'll have some other news about the Buffalo Bills as they just re-signed someone as well. But a couple other moves that have been made so far this offseason that I haven't talked about yet are Matthew Stafford was traded to the Rams. He was moved there for 2 first-round picks, and Jared Goff went to the Lions. So the Rams continuously keep up this trend of trading their first-round draft picks. I think they're without a draft pick until like 2024 or something like that, might be even longer. And so it's interesting. I think Matthew Stafford is definitely one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of football. He's been on a pretty subpar Lions team for a while, and he's made them at least semi-relevant in my eyes. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Stafford's able to do under that coach and all of those talented wideouts. I'm really looking forward to that. And also, I think Jared Goff is in a fresh place. He's getting a new start. He's a talented kid. He just has struggled with some injuries and wasn't able to necessarily bounce back and really have the success that he really wanted to there with Sean McVay and the Rams, the LA Rams. Sorry, I didn't know why I couldn't think of Los Angeles there for a second. But yeah, that's a big trade that went down so far this offseason, as well as another one. The Eagles have traded quarterback Carson Wentz to the Colts. Phillip Rivers did announce he is retiring, so the Colts were kind of left in a situation when they didn't have a quarterback. Wentz is a guy that has also battled a lot of injuries in his career. And I'm excited to kind of see if he's able to bounce back and have a resurgence at all. This is a guy that was leading a Philadelphia Eagles team on a Super Bowl run and then got hurt. And then Nick Foles was able to come in and continue to do what Wentz was doing that year. This is a guy that showed a lot of promise, but hasn't necessarily materialized everything that we thought he could be so far in the NFL. Maybe a new scene, maybe a new city, things like that helps him kind of get his feet under him a little bit more. So big trade there with the Eagles and the Colts. And as promised, the Buffalo Bills did re-sign their safety Micah Hyde to a 2-year deal. I wasn't able to find the actual total of the money that he's going to be getting, but like I mentioned before, the Bills really struggled stopping the run last season. So I expect them to make some more moves in bolstering their defensive line. But this is a big move, and he's a talented player, and their secondary is good. And so I really think that this is a good move for Buffalo. Keeping that continuity in the back end is huge. So good news for Buffalo, and those are some NFL signings, trades. It's going to be a carousel moving forward in the NFL of what's happening in the offseason. So I'll do my best to keep you posted about what goes down there. All right, some interesting news out of the NCAA in terms of football. The SEC conference is pretty much rallying together a lot of the schools in that conference, I should say, of saying that they're expecting to have full stadiums, full sellout crowds for next football season. Alabama was a team that really came out originally in favor of this notion, and it's expected to be like that throughout the majority of the SEC conference. I'm sure you'll still see some schools that kind of limit some capacities, because there were still those schools in the SEC last year that didn't allow fans, and most did. So this is a huge debate, right? It's a hugely debated topic ever since sports returned to relevancy after the huge shutdown due to COVID-19. I personally have the stance on fans attending games to be great. I love to see fans there, as long as it does not compromise or in any way jeopardize the safety of the players or the game that happens. College football is amazing. Having crowds, having that pageantry, having students in the stands, having the band playing, cheerleaders on the sidelines, all of those things is what made me fall in love with the sport. So to hear that that's coming back in the SEC and we'll be able to see that at some capacity, on one hand, makes me insanely happy. But also there's that other part of me that is very COVID-19 sensitive and says, is this necessarily the right move? That's still a really long way away. We're talking almost half a year. Maybe not half a year. We're in March now, so we're talking August, late August, that these seasons will start. So it's still a couple months down the road, and hopefully we continue to see these positive trends with COVID-19 cases. But there are other variants out there. There's other variants of the virus that have different effects and can make people sick all over again. I'm not a health expert. I do not even pretend to think that I am. So I will not speak on that aspect of things. But as one side of me is very happy to hear the fact that things may be starting to return to normal. The other side of me is also hesitantly optimistic as to hoping that everyone is attending these in the safest way possible, continuing to maybe wear masks, be vaccinated by that point. You know what I mean? Like things that will ensure the safety of not only the players, the coaches, the bands, the students, the cheerleaders, everyone else involved with the schools, but also the fans that attend, because there's going to be people that don't want COVID-19 and are very susceptible to having bad things happen to them if they do get COVID-19. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm very happy to hear that they're optimistic and they're thinking that this is going to be the method that they choose to go with. It would be great to hear all of those sellout fans cheering. There's some great college atmospheres in the SEC: Alabama, Auburn, Georgia. Some amazing fan bases that really deserve and have quality products to go support. And that's another thing. So hopefully that's able to be a thing, but also on the other hand, as I said, cautiously optimistic. All right, the PGA Tour. Colin Morikawa won the WGC Workday last week. I kind of gave that spiel about what the WGCs mean in the landscape of the golf schedule. They're huge events. They're worth more FedEx Cup points. And this is a huge win for him. This is his fourth win on tour already. And I believe he's only been on out here for 3 years. He has also already won a major championship. He won the PGA Championship this year at TPC Harding Park. He now sits at number 4 in the world in the official world golf rankings. So we're talking about a kid that came out of Cal. He studied all 4 years, stayed in school all 4 years, got his degree, and will probably never, ever use his degree because he's just tearing it up out here on the PGA Tour. He seems to be a class act, one of the nicest guys out there. He came out and just had this command and this urgency to win, sort of similar to Victor Hovland, who's won at least twice on tour. Matthew Wolff has already won on tour. They both came out of Oklahoma State in the same year. Yeah, this is a guy that really has it. He has it all together. And to throw a crazy stat at you and put this into perspective a little bit, Colin Morikawa is the only other player other than, guess who, Mr. Tiger Woods, to win a major tournament and a WGC event before the age of 25. The only other player other than Tiger Woods, Mr. 82 PGA Tour wins, 15 majors, all the whole 9 yards. That's an impressive stat, and always elite company if you can be combined in any association with Mr. Tiger Woods. Was great to see. He showed resilience down the stretch. It was an amazing event there in Florida, and congratulations, Colin. A number of professionals from that event at the WGC Workday wore red polos and black slacks to kind of honor Tiger Woods on Sunday. Sunday Tiger is that patented red polo, black slack look where he's in his power color. He's there. Everyone's tuned in, and he's going to win the tournament. It was amazing to see those players react in that way and show their support to Tiger, who is recovering from that car accident. The Big Cat also gave out his appreciation for what happened, and he showed and acknowledged his appreciation for the support that he got. You all can see the tweet here, and that was just really cool to see that kind of respect and shown to Tiger, and I was happy to see that. Speaking of Tiger Woods, though, there are some new developments in the investigations into the car accident that he was just recently in. New reports have shown that he was unconscious when a civilian arrived at the scene, and that kind of goes against what was reported when the first police officer arrived. The police officer said he was alert, he was aware, and was able to respond to basic questions. This civilian said he was not that. And there was also a report that came out that said Tiger had no recollection of driving or of the crash in any sort of way when he was asked by police. So that's a little bit of a concerning thing to hear. This is going to be a completely full-on investigation as to what happened. They are pulling the kind of analytics and the data from the car, which is essentially what they would do with like the black box, from a plane or a helicopter accident. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton more details coming out about what is happening here in terms of the condition that he was in and things like that. And being able to get those analytics shows like basically what happened the moments before the accident happened in the car. So that will be interesting to hear. And as of right now, that's all the reports that I've heard. So I will continue to update you on what's happening there with Tiger Woods and kind of what went wrong in this accident. But kind of troubling news, the first little bit of troubling news, other than the fact that he was in an accident and he was very clearly hurt and will take a long time to go back to any sort of normalcy in his daily life. But that's the first sign of troubling news in my eyes, in terms of maybe impairment or anything like that. There was no blood work done when he was arrived at the hospital due to impairment because they didn't think they needed to. But with all that being said, it's going to be a full-on investigation, so I will let you know details as I get them. This week, in terms of the PGA Tour, it is the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Golf Club. So this is the week where they really honor the late, great Arnold Palmer. He died 5 years ago now. He was one of the world's best ambassadors to the game of golf. And so it's very cool to see the display of respect shown to him this week. And Bay Hill is a fantastic golf course, and it's got another elite field. As of right now, through 2 days of play, Corey Connors has the lead at 9 under par. Martin Laird is at 8 under par. Victor Hovland, who I talked about earlier, and Rory McIlroy and Lanto Griffin, are all tied at 7 under par. And so Rory and Victor are big names playing really well recently. Bryson DeChambeau is sitting there at 6 under par. Paul Casey, Justin Rose, and Jordan Spieth are all sitting there at 5 under par. So that's where we stand through 2 rounds. Clearly, this isn't Sunday, so I can't tell you who necessarily wins the event. But yes, fantastic golf tournament and some really big names in it. And hopefully the weekend all plays out as well as the first few days have. But anyway, great event there with the Arnold Palmer Invitational. All right, let's turn focus now to the NBA. The All-Star teams were selected this week, and I'll take you through the rosters real quick. Team LeBron is stacked. Just quite frankly, it was an insane draw. He is playing, so he's one of the starters, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic are all of his starters, and that is just an absolutely insane lineup. Jokic is one of the best big men in all of the league. Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, he had that classic interview where he heard his who was on his team, and he was like, "Yeah, it's over. I'm sorry." So that was really funny to see. Luka Doncic has just been playing amazing basketball as of late, and Steph Curry, the greatest shooter of all time, in my opinion. The reserves for Team LeBron are Damian Lillard, Jaylen Brown, Paul George, Chris Paul, Domantas Sabonis, Ben Simmons, and Rudy Gobert. The starters for Team Durant. Kevin Durant is injured right now, so he will not be participating in the game himself, but he will still be the coach. The starters for Team Durant are Bradley Beal, who's just been on an absolute tear for the Washington Wizards, Joel Embiid for the 76ers, who is a monster down low as well, in my opinion. Kyrie Irving, one of Kevin Durant's teammates there in Brooklyn. Kawhi Leonard, obviously, and Jason Tatum, forward for the Celtics, is in there as well as one of the starters. The reserves for Team Durant are Devin Booker, who is one of the most underrated players in all of basketball, in my opinion, for the Phoenix Suns. Anthony Davis, who's currently injured right now, and I do not think will be playing in the game. James Harden, one of Kevin Durant's other teammates in Brooklyn, Zach LaVine for the Bulls, Julius Randle for the why am I completely blanking? Anyway, Julius Randle for the Knicks, the New York. I couldn't get the other New York team. There's a lot of teams that are bouncing through my head as of right now, so bear with me. Julius Randle for the Knicks, and Donovan Mitchell for the Utah Jazz. Interestingly enough, the Utah Jazz have the best record in all of the NBA, and their two best players, in my opinion, are Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They were both selected last, with the last two picks for the NBA All-Star draft. This sent Jazz Twitter into a complete uproar, and in my opinion, very rightfully so. The Jazz have been playing amazing basketball as of late, and these are their best guys. And LeBron James kind of came out with those comments after Charles Barkley said this is slander in the eyes of the Utah Jazz, and LeBron said it wasn't slander. That's just no one ever played with the Utah Jazz growing up in the video games. So that upset a lot of people here in the Salt Lake area. And I just think it really goes to show kind of the gap still between a small market team and a large market team. The LA Lakers are a large market team. The New York Knicks are a large market team. And the Utah Jazz are a very small market team out of Salt Lake City. And so I do not know, first of all, how to combat this. Honestly, the Utah Jazz fans and everyone else are entirely, in my eyes, entirely right to be upset about this. It's a little bit disrespectful, but at the same point in time, it's kind of some of the similar things that we see throughout the sports world, where you see a Coastal Carolina be viewed completely irrelevantly or a Cincinnati Bearcats team who was really good last year be completely and entirely disregarded in terms of playing for a national championship in college football. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying it's the way that things are in this scenario of things. And it's tough. I wasn't happy to hear it personally. I think the comments were a little offhanded and not necessarily in the best light. But with that being said, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are amazing basketball players. They deserve to be in the All-Star game. And as long as the Jazz continue to play really good basketball and continue to win and continue to make a push for the postseason, their record and the things that they do later in the season will be able to speak louder than any of the words spoken against them. So they control their destiny at this point, and basically all that they can do is continue to play well, and hopefully that some of the perspectives will change. In other news in the NBA, the Detroit Pistons approved a buyout for Blake Griffin, so he will officially become a free agent. He was he openly voiced his displeasure in what was happening in Detroit. He is a phenomenal athlete, one of the best dunkers I've ever seen as a big man, and a force. And so whoever he goes is going to be a place where that gets a whole lot better pretty immediately. So yeah, that's going to do it for the major world organizations, in my opinion, the big leagues, I should say. I will now transition to go down to some talking points about the University of Utah athletics. And I'll start things off here with gymnastics. They have a meet against Oregon State, who's ranked number 23. That is this weekend, and they will finish off their season against Utah State next week. And this is their last regular season meet. The Red Rocks are a phenomenal organization, a team. They're playing so well. They're so good at what they do, and they've been so consistent, and they do not get enough respect in the landscape of the university and the fans. And so I will continuously to give them shout outs and tune into their meet. Excuse me, it's not a match. And yeah, this is their last Pac-12 meet. So make sure to tune in and give them their support as they progress towards postseason play and the rest of their season. Utah women's volleyball lost two matches last weekend to the University of Washington. Washington's ranked number 9 in the country. They lost in straight sets on Friday, and then they lost 1-3 on Sunday. And tough weekend for them, but they will bounce back this weekend with 2 home matches on Friday and Sunday against Stanford. So make sure to tune into those and watch the Utah women's volleyball team get back on the right track. Talking about a portion of our university that does not get enough respect is the University of Utah ski team. The ski team has won, I don't even know how many national championships, but they are having one of the most historic seasons in their own in recent memory and in collegiate history. So they have won the RMISA regular season championship, and they averaged 709.3 points over those 4 regular season meets. That total adds up to 2,837 points throughout their season, which is the most in a regular season ever in this current scoring format. So that's just a completely mind-boggling stat that they're doing something that no one's ever done in the landscape of collegiate skiing. They are heading into the NCAA championships on March 10th through the 13th. So let's all do our best to give them the support that they rightfully deserve on this historic run. And hopefully they're able to bring the University of Utah yet another national championship. The Utah Running Utes pulled off a big win last weekend, 71-61 over number 19 USC. Alfonso Plummer had 19 points and 3 rebounds. He's been a tremendous player all season long. Timmy Allen had 15 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 block, and 2 steals. So pretty much did a little bit of everything for Utah in this one. USC is one of the best teams in the Pac-12. Leaf and I do a lot of extensive coverage on college basketball. We don't necessarily talk a lot about the Pac-12 because they have some good teams, but they're a little bit more inconsistent. And Utah is a team that is essentially in need of a Pac-12 tournament win to make the NCAA tournament. And definitely possible, but they've kind of played themselves into a scenario where that needs to happen to continue to play into the postseason. So a big win here, though, over USC. So 71-61 running Utes. Shout out to Utah women's tennis. They are now 6-2 on their season, and they are coming off of their 12th straight win over BYU. Big shout out there in terms of that continued streak and just continuing to play really good tennis. So that's going to do it for Utah athletics. Continue to tune in as all of these spring sports continue to really ramp up. A lot more home games coming. So things happening back here in Salt Lake City as the weather warms up and things like that. So that's going to do it for me as well. That's all that I got for you on this Sunday. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hopefully you all enjoyed the interview with Bill. Once again, thanks a lot, Bill, for your time and your thoughts. And Make sure to tune in next week. I'll have a completely new slate of what's happening. It's going to be another amazing week. And yeah, have a great rest of your week, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week ahead. Stay safe. Continue to do whatever you need to do to make sure you continue to stay safe. Be well, have fun, enjoy sports, enjoy whatever you're doing this week, and hopefully you all have a great rest of your week. All right, everyone. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.